Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Sandeep Dosanjh, and I am the Chief of Communications and Community Engagement for the Rockland Unified School District. Tonight, we are so grateful and appreciative to have special guests joining us to share information as well as personal stories regarding drugs and social media. On your chair, you were provided with an index card. During the program, as you have questions, please write your question on the index card and then raise your hand. A district staff member will collect your card. Pens have been spread out throughout the audience, so please share the pens with your neighbors. And the index cards will be read during the Q&A portion towards the end of the program. Let me now take a moment to welcome to the stage Rockland Unified School District Superintendent, Mr. Roger Scott.
I will be brief, but I want to just take a few minutes to just acknowledge the people that we have here, but most importantly, all of you that have come out tonight is family members. So I see some of my colleagues in the district here as educators to just learn more. We take as educators, our first responsibility is to keep students safe, and obviously we want to educate them, but that safety is top of mind. And so you being here tonight shows you want to learn more, you want to know how to best keep your child or your student safe. So we thank you for that, because we couldn't do this without, as a community, if we didn't have you here with us. With that being said, there's a few folks that I just need to say thank you, because when we have an event like this, it relies on people in our community stepping up to help us. And of course, the first is as Chris and Laura did here, Zachary's parents. Thank you for being here, for sharing things that just, I can't imagine how difficult that is. We so appreciate you doing that for us. And also, we have some other guests. We are thrilled in our community to work so closely with our Rockland Police Department. They help us keep our schools and our community safe day in, day out. We're grateful that so many of them here tonight to share with us. We also are grateful we are served by our Placer County District Attorney, Morgan Geyer. Mr. Geyer is here as well. We appreciate him taking time to be here. We also have great partners in Wellness Together, our Placer County Office of Education, and we again couldn't serve our students and families without this partnership. But also, this starts really from the top, and with that being said, is we are thrilled to have our president of our Board of Trustees, Darryl Counter, with us as well. We've received direction from our board to make sure that we engage our community, that we keep our students safe, and this event really comes out of the direction the board's given us. And of course, I just need to quickly thank key members of our team who work with this. First is our Associate Superintendent of Secondary, and Marty Flowers. And Mr. Flowers is so dedicated, he's here on his birthday tonight. So we really and then Senator Dosanjh, who's our Chief of Communications. They work behind the scenes to make this event here. And again, thank you all for being here. We know this is not a one-time event, but this is a continued partnership to keep our kids safe. So we thank you. With that, I'll turn it back to Chief Dosanjh.
Okay. Before we hear from our guests, we will start this evening with two videos. The first clip is from the Sacramento County Assistant District Attorney, Tin Ho. And the second video introduces us to Zach Daly's story.
My name is Tin Ho. I'm an Assistant Chief Deputy District Attorney for the Sacramento District Attorney's Office. I want to thank Wellness Together and the Rockland Unified School District for allowing me this opportunity to speak with you. Over 175 people have died from fentanyl poisoning in the last 18 months in Sacramento and Placer County. That's more people than all those that have died from gun-related homicides during the same period of time. One pill can kill. Drug dealers are contacting our children, our family members, and our friends through social media, Snapchat, Instagram. And what they're doing is they're telling them that they can buy these drugs. but 98% of the drugs that we are seizing off the streets are counterfeit. And of those counterfeits, nearly 100% of them contain fentanyl. All it takes is one pill to kill. So this is the message we want to give everyone. If the drug does not come from a pharmacy, then it's a counterfeit. And if it's a counterfeit, then it contains fentanyl. And all it takes is one pill to kill. Please get this message out, because no family, no parent, no father, no mother, no family, and no community needs to suffer the heartbreak of another fentanyl-related death. Thank you.
All right, we're now going to have the Placer County District Attorney Morgan Geyer joining us for a few remarks.
Good evening. Can you hear me? Is it on? How about that? There we go. All right, good evening. Thank you very much. Thank you for being here. It's hard to top what Tin Ho just said with those numbers. I've been a prosecutor for 23 years. I prosecuted murderers, rapists. This is the most frightening time that I've seen in my 23 years in the criminal justice system. The amount of heartache and grief that our communities are enduring because of the scourge of the fentanyl epidemic here is remarkable. We lived through the 70s, the 80s, the 90s with drug epidemics. They weren't like this. These are incredibly dangerous times, and we need to get the word out. So how do we do that? What do we do locally? How do we do it? We've got a couple of different arms here. We've got our enforcement arm. And you were going to hear from some very talented folks who are very good at catching the people who are selling these on our streets. That won't stop. That will only increase. We have taken more fentanyl off the streets of our community, enough to overdose the entire population of this county twice. And sadly, this isn't the only county that people are using that statistic. That's sadly commonplace in counties throughout our state. So while the enforcement arm will continue, what else can we do? We have to get the message out, and we have to be united, and we have to be loud. And the best way to do that is for us to have events like this, to partner with people like Chris and Laura, who have turned their pain into power and are using their voice to spread this word. There was an event at the Capitol in the summer, and there were a lot of Zach's friends. And they were saying words about their experiences. And afterward, I had a chance to talk to these absolutely remarkable young men. And my only word of advice to them will keep doing exactly what you're doing. Share this story. Students, young people in our community, they'll listen to lawyers in suits, but not really well. They'll listen to cops probably a little bit better, but who they will listen to are people who are in their exact same situation. They'll listen to friends who have lost friends. They'll listen to parents who have lost friends and children. They will listen and hear those stories, and they will spread the word. We have to get our students to know, we have to get our parents to know just how easy it is for these drugs to end up in the hands of people who have no idea what it is. Every pill on that street, 98% of every pill, every counterfeit pill has traces of fentanyl in it. And that one pill can kill is absolutely true. And we see it over and over again, and it has to stop. And the only way we do that on the education side is by joining together and getting loud. Those that have voices, say it loud. And we will continue to do it. Our community deserves it. Our children demand it. We have to do all we can. And it starts with being right here tonight. So thank you all for being here. I want to especially thank Chris and Laura Didier. They are perhaps some of the most inspiring people I have ever met. To be able to continue this message and share it to try and prevent other parents from living this same nightmare. Turn that passion, turn that anguish into power, and spread that message. Do what you can to help educate your children, and we will do all we can to get this message out. And in the meantime, these guys back here will continue to find the people who are selling it. And in this county, and in all the other counties surrounding, we will lower the hammer on people that we can. And that will remain for certain in Placer County, in Sacramento County, and all of our surrounding neighborhoods. We will not tolerate people coming into our counties and selling these pills to our community. Thank you for letting me speak tonight. Thank you for being here. I'll turn it back over.
After Zach died, I built up some courage to look a little bit into the phone before giving it over to the detective, and I discovered a video.
You ready? Me too.
So it's his handsome, beautiful face, and behind his shoulder, you can see our dog, Jake. Jake loved to sing when Zach played piano. When I found this video, it encapsulated everything beautiful about him. His love of the piano, his incredible talent, his playfulness interacting with Jake, his beautiful smile, just his heart, his talent, his spirit. And I mean, I watch that video all the time when I need to feel him alive. Zach was the kind of child you dream of having.
Hi, Grandpa.
He lit up a room. He was always smiling and always laughing. He was incredibly gifted at the piano, and he started from as soon as he could get on his little tippy toes and reach the keys. Once he started a theater class in high school, he got the bug. He tried out for his first show and was cast in the lead role.
Zach was a talented and recognized multi-sport athlete. He was in track. He started out on the JV team, and then shortly after that accelerated into the varsity team.
He received that season the Coach's Award.
Zach was disciplined. He's a bona fide straight-A student. He was able to enroll in just about all of the AP classes he was allowed to.
His friend group was a lot of really bright kids.
He was very loyal to his friends. Once he brought someone into his friend group, he really went out to help them out any way he can.
He loved people. He loved making people smile. He would often be the one that would try to cheer someone up or make them laugh.
He is a kid who absolutely left a unique fingerprint in the world. He is truly an unrepeatable miracle for us. So it wasn't until Christmas time that there were some subtle signs that showed a little bit of a difference in his behavior.
He just seemed more tired than normal, a little bit irritable. He just explained it as, I stayed up playing video games, you know, it was COVID time, and he just said, Mom, don't worry about me, I'm fine, I'm totally fine. And I said, honey, it's my job to worry about you. I'm your mom.
After Christmas, he hung out with his friends. As a parent of teenagers, my fear is when they're on their own, exploring their new expanded boundaries. So when he came home, I felt a sense of relief, not realizing there was imminent danger in his pocket or in his possession. When I say goodnight to my family, especially my children, I always say, good night, I love you. And Zach, every single time, without fail, always told me, I love you, Dad. Those were his last words to me. The next day, I went to check on Zach because it was later than his normal wake-up time, and he appeared to be asleep at his desk. And I got within 2 feet and I knew something was horribly wrong. And I immediately started rendering first aid to Zach with CPR. And those moments I feel very haunted. No parent should have to see their child lifeless and initiate CPR to try to save them.
There was all these people on the driveway, and Chris, and our other 2 kids. And, Chris just came up and said, "Our baby's gone."
The coroner told us that Zach either died from a natural cause or fentanyl.
We were like, what is that? I hadn't really ever heard of fentanyl.
What we have learned is Zach started to experiment. He purchased what he thought was a pharmaceutical grade Percocet. Instead, it was a counterfeit pill, and the only acting agent in it is fentanyl. And it was an extreme amount that was fatal.
We found out that it was through Snapchat that Zach had connected with this dealer and gotten the pill.
Social media is the #1 go-to platform for drug dealers.
They press it to look exactly like a Percocet, a Xanax, an Adderall, oxycodone. The level of fentanyl in each pill is completely inconsistent.
And it takes as little as 2 milligrams worth of fentanyl, or about the same amount as 2 grains of salt, to be lethal.
These pills are everywhere. In basically any pill that you get on the black market, you can be assured that it is one of these fake fentanyl pills.
None of Zach's friends were aware of the dangers that exist now from counterfeit pills.
None of us were. Fentanyl, it robs you of any chance to get red flags. I mean, he had no other pills in his room. He had no other anything in his room. With fentanyl, I mean, you can try a pill 1 time or 2 times, and it takes you out. If I had known about illicit fentanyl and how prolific it is, it would have caused me to have different conversations, with Zach.
It would have been a sit-down conversation as a concerned parent to say, hey, Zach, I just learned about this. Have you heard about this? Are you getting any kind of products on social media? Knowing Zach, he would have thought, okay, maybe that's playing Russian roulette.
We talked to Zach about every danger that we knew, but this one we didn't know. And that's why we have made it our mission, to join with other parents, to educate the community.
We want to bring to light the dangers and how pervasive it is. This can happen to any family.
Look at this place.
We can't ever bring Zach back, but it does help mitigate some of the pain, thinking that maybe we've saved other kids. Maybe Zach has saved other kids.
Please help me welcome Zach's parents, Chris and Laura Digger, to the stage.
Hi, everyone. It's hard to talk after that. Thank you so much for being here. That video was actually done by a college roommate of mine. She happens to be a documentary filmmaker, so when we came to really understand what was going on and that we together decided that this was going to become our mission, she volunteered her time to help us put that together, so we're very grateful to her. As you saw in that video, we were just really blindsided by this. We lost Zach 2 days after last Christmas. And we truly felt like a bomb went off in our house, that we didn't even know there was this landmine in our home. These were not conversations we even knew to have with Zach. And so we've just really wanted to share and spread awareness and commune with other parents who have experienced this, because sadly, when we started researching all of this, we came to realize how many other families are just like our family, and have lost a child in this way. It's really hit our state hard. Kind of started in Southern California. We have a lot of friends who lost the kids before we did. And up here, it's a little bit newer, but the wonderful gentleman in law enforcement can give you more information on that. But it was very much something we never could have expected. You saw our other two children in the video, and they never had used drugs or alcohol, so we were very naive, and then Zach was just doing so great, and he was such a happy guy that we could never have seen this coming. And when he was tired and kind of irritable, how many teenagers do you know that are tired and irritable? And so when, his reasons for that seemed very plausible to us. So one of the things that we've spent a lot of time doing since we came to find all of this out is get connected with a nonprofit. We have some information over there, a Song for Charlie, and this organization was started by two parents who lost their son, Charlie. He was a university student in Santa Clara, but the father grew up in Davis. He went to Jesuit high school, but they for years have lived in Southern California. They lost their son, Charlie, about 8 months before we lost Zach. So when we came out publicly once we got the toxicology report back, we connected with that family, and the work that they've been doing to spread awareness is really incredible. So if you'd like to learn more about it, we've got information over there. We're trying to get curriculum, into schools. There's programs, information geared for middle school kids and high school kids. We've been talking a lot with our wonderful administrators here in Rockland about getting that information out. We're doing a lot of things like this, and hopefully we'll be able to do more things in person. We've prior to now have had to do a lot virtually, but it's just really important because this is a totally new landscape that our kids are dealing with. It's really the perfect storm of the most lethal drugs we've ever seen. Being synthetic, they're just everywhere. It's so easy for them to make these things and just push them out all over the place. And then the drug dealers are pretty much in our kids' pockets, on these in these apps and things. And then with Zach, you add into all of that the lockdowns. It was his senior year of high school, and all of these things he was looking forward to, he didn't get to do. And tragically, this is where we are now. We're so grateful for all of you coming out. We're trying, like I say, to spread awareness. We're trying to get Zach's peers, people in that age group, to ally with us, to share stories, to help educate, peer to peer. We feel like that can be really, really powerful. So thank you so much, and I'm gonna give it to Chris's Zach's dad.
And welcome everyone. I'm glad people made the effort to come out. I would like to first start by saying simply, fentanyl changes everything. Fentanyl changes everything. In our advocacy, working with literally thousands of other families who are in the same club none of us want to be in, we often struggle with the problem of stigma when talking about our stories. When people hear the words such as overdose, fentanyl, drugs, they tend to compartmentalize that as a drug problem that would affect them. And it's not unreasonable that people tend to associate a story with addiction. And if a story has addiction associated with it, victim shaming creeps in. And that's a challenge. I am here to tell you, we are here to tell you that this is different. The landscape The drug landscape that existed when we were growing up is absolutely different. It is very different. It's far more dangerous than you may realize. So, tonight it's important to me to make sure I convey a distinction that I think everyone needs to know about. And that is simply that there is a tremendous amount of deception behind here. Never in the history of drug manufacturing, drug trafficking, drug peddling, where so much intentional deception has taken place as it is going on right now. It's pervasive. It's right outside these doors. As you may have heard, Customs and Border Protection Agency reported enough fentanyl seized in about the last 12 months to kill every American 7 times over. They believe only 5% of illicit drugs are being seized. So when you drive home tonight, in your car, on your way home, I promise you, it is out there. It's right outside these doors. The car that you pass, the crowd at the corner you pass, is probably going to be right there. You may not realize it's under your nose. This has affected all demographics, but what's really alarming is it's affecting the new demographic that has emerged are the middle school, high school, college age young adults. CDC has reported that they are about 3 to 4 times more impacted than any of the other demographics because drug makers and traffickers are exploiting. Why is that? Why are the younger generations more impacted? Well, pretty much everyone in here has walked in with a cell phone. That's one part of it. And our young adults have spent most of their time in their world, in their life, using a cell phone. And it has become a reliable resource to them, whether it helps them solve a math problem, or it helps them climb the social acceptance ladder, or it helps them, learn to play a musical instrument. It's a reliable resource to them. The other part to it is that prescription pills are far more common now than they were when I was in high school. Even a lot of the young adults today, they've been taking legitimate prescriptions for ADHD or for tooth extraction, getting ready for their braces. Their siblings take it, their cousins take it, their friends take it. So when you think about, hey, I'm trying to solve a problem, or I'm trying to deal with life stress as I go through middle school, high school, and college, and I'm struggling with passing my classes, or I'm struggling with anxiety, or I need pain management. It makes sense that they're thinking they're just going to go and do this on their own using a smart device and get on a social media app. And you feel like, well, prescription pills are always safe. It's been around forever. The thing is, what they think is the safest is actually now the most dangerous. You're 3 times more impacted. 11 months and 18 days ago was the worst day of my life. And I've had some hard days in my career, and anyone who knows me well can attest to that. I am broken. And I am destroyed. And it really sucks when I see my handsome, beautiful son on a poster as a victim of fraud. Zach did not deserve that. Our family did not deserve that. Your family does not deserve that. So, we need your help. Emotions are close to the surface because it's a very tender topic, but it is my story, and I'm going to talk about it. We need you to help us stand in solidarity with us and get the message out. Talk to your kids. Have a real conversation and just say, guys, this is what I'm learning. Do you know about this? I have found that you gain more traction not telling them what to do or not to do, but to just simply tell them, here's what's going on out there. They are smart enough to make their own decisions. We just want you to help us make informed decisions for them because they are truly our best, our future. They're one of the greatest generations. They're far more informed. inspiring, they're creative, they're very capable. But the fact that they are being deceived and they're the most impacted demographic is sinister in my mind. So please help us out. And just sit down with them and say, guys, here's the danger. Think about it. Just think about what's going on. Okay? Thank you for letting us share our story and spending your time tonight with us. And we'll be over there to answer any questions, and we appreciate it. Stay safe. Merry Christmas.
The Diviers also will be participating in the Q&A that will take place a little later. We now have Jeremiah Aha with Wellness Together and Michael Lombardo with the Placer County Office of Education to join us on stage.
Chris and Laura, thank you. We haven't met, but thank you for the invitation into your mission. And it is encouraging to see parents that are such strong advocates, not only for your son, for your family, but for this entire community. So thank you for sharing. And just the snapshot right here, if you look out, is just evidence of your passion and your mission. So thank you for the invitation for that, for sharing your story, and for being so vulnerable this evening. I'm grateful for it. My name is Jeremiah Aha. I serve as Assistant Director and I'm a therapist with Wellness Together. We're a nonprofit based here in the area. And for a couple of reasons, Rockland holds a special place for our organization and for me personally. I went to Springview Middle School and a graduate from Rockland High School as well as our founder and executive director. So this is home for us. In the early 90s, way back in the 1900s, moved here and really made this place home. And it's been home ever since. Part of the work that we do, I just want to share a little bit about that in ways that even if you have middle school or high school students, for some ways for them to get involved with mental health awareness, mental health advocacy, and ways that we can really have students get involved in things that are helpful for the community, helpful for themselves. So as a nonprofit, we partner with schools across California to provide and deliver effective mental health services right there on campus. And so, again, our founder, as I mentioned, his name is Marlon Morgan. He began in the early 2000s as a school counselor. And so we champion school counselors, school social workers, all school staff that are working to serve students. We come alongside and we are able to provide on-site weekly therapy for students. So if you have a student within the district and you're thinking, or you have a concern, maybe there's some challenges they're experiencing, or maybe you're noticing that things are a bit off at this particular time, we're in every one of the schools, and it's a true privilege. Thank you to Superintendent Stock, wherever you're at, to the board, and to the members of the district that are here this evening. Thank you for your partnership. You're one of our very first partners here, and we're still so glad to partner with you. So if you have a student in one of these schools, it's just a quick email or phone call to the school counselor at Granite Oaks or at Springview, or any of the high schools, or a quick phone call to the principal there at one of the elementary schools as a way to receive, be enrolled and referred to the program to receive weekly therapy for your students at no cost to you or to the child. And so we're really privileged to be able to do that. You know, as we're going to hear a lot of tough things tonight, a lot of challenges that we've never faced in our generation. Chris and Laura, you've nailed it. We've never seen anything like this. Something that is absolutely hit every demographic, including our children, because of the ease of access that they have with social media and the means that they have. And you mentioned it's right outside of these doors. In addition, it's right on every one of our phones in our pockets. Right? And so, if there is anything that you're seeing that you need support for your child, we're here to support with you. Really glad to be able to also serve as a bridge for the other great partners. Shout out to all the organizations that are here tonight. These are other people that are here with you. We're on your team, we're on your family side to support your student. Wellness Together has a booth back there. Melissa's back there. I'm Melissa. I'm sharing a little bit about what we offer, and I encourage you to visit all the other booths that are here tonight, as we also serve as a bridge to those organizations. As usually when a student is referred to the program, within 2 school days, we're able to meet with the students. And maybe they have a doctor, maybe you have insurance, but it could be several weeks, several months wait time. We can kind of be a bridge to those providers there in the community to help you out. A couple of things just to mention is one of the ways that maybe, obviously if you're a parent, you're not a student within the Rockland Unified School District. We also offer something called hearyou.org, which is online counseling. If you've been around any podcasts or anything, you've probably heard ads from BetterHelp or Talkspace. It's kind of, Uber meets mental health. We have employees of Wellness Together that provide online counseling at nonprofit rates for any California residents. So you can visit our table to find out some more, take home a squishy ball or something, and hear that we are there for you, for any support that you might need or your students might need, even outside of that. Again, our heart is for access, for students, for individuals, for families to have access to immediate mental health supports. So if there are struggles that you're noticing, we can connect with someone, a mental health professional that can help them. Lastly, as I mentioned, for your students to get involved. We've been partnering for years with the California Department of Education, as well as the U.S. Department of Education this last year on the Student Mental Wellness Conference. That's been for adults, for educators, and mental health professionals. Earlier this year, the California Department of Ed approached us and said, can you do a free event for students to elevate the student voice, to really tell them that their voice matters? And out of that, Mind Out Loud was born, mindoutloud.org. We have free workshops every month and a big virtual event on March 12th. It's a way for your students to get involved. We have ways that your students can learn more about how to increase mental health awareness and advocacy on their school campuses. I invite you to be a part of that, as well as a student representative program. We have 30 students across California, and even some outside of here, that are being advocates for their peers and for themselves on campus. So if you'd like to know more about that, I'll be back there at the table afterwards. We'd love to share more with you. Thank you again to this community and for what you are doing to support your families. In any way that we can help and do that with you, please just let us know. I'll toss it over to Mike.
It is truly an honor and privilege to be here. My name is Mike Labardo. I'm the Executive Director of Placer County Office of Education. I'm also a parent of children who attended Rockland schools all the way kindergarten through high school. As a parent, I believe the best resource we have is each other. And talking to each other, communicating with each other, letting each other know when we notice something, in our friends, our child's friends who are over at our house. It was this community that helped raise my children, are grown now. So I'm grateful to be able to be here and be able to work in Rockland and work with Rockland Unified School District, who has a lot of resources such as Wellness Together. They are a leader in implementing school climate programs in Placer County, mental health programs. There's mental health supports at every campus. And all that's great, but as a parent, sometimes we don't reach those services because, for a lot of variety of reasons. So if you know somebody who's struggling or somebody who needs support, go to your school. We're lucky to be in Rockland and have those supports to help us get connected with the awesome providers that we brought with us in the back of the room. On the far right-hand side, we have, not to be confused with Wellness Together, we have Granite Wellness on the far right, and they are our premier substance abuse provider in Placer and Nevada counties. Next to them is Wellness Together. Next to them is the Lighthouse. The Lighthouse provides family services, supports for substance services. They provide counseling. They provide all kinds of at-risk services for youth. We partner at the county office with the Lighthouse to help place them onto campuses throughout our community as well. Next to them is our table from Placer County Office of Education. You may not have ever even heard of a county office of education. What do they do? We help schools. So our primary job is to support school districts and bridge in that sometimes gap between the community and schools, and getting community-based agencies to schools. We provide education for educators on all the topics we're going to hear about today. Then in the corner of the room is Kids First, and they also provide family services and counseling and other supports and services, mostly free to our parents and our communities through funding that we get through the Mental Health Services Act. That's about it for me. I'm going to join the panel, but I'm grateful to all of you for coming out and supporting our family that's here, supporting Zach, and supporting each other. Thank you.
Okay, so there's a lot of information here. So if you guys have any questions on your index cards, feel free to raise your hand and someone will collect them and bring them over to me. So I do have a question for the data literacy. What would you recommend parents do? They received so much information tonight. What would you recommend that they do? Top 2 things.
Go ahead and start. Like I had already mentioned earlier, definitely sit down and have a real conversation with your kids. And just say, here's what I'm learning. Here is what is out there. We have resources to help you clarify your message. We have statistics to show it. I believe when you have an honest conversation with your kids and explain to them that their feelings matter, their concerns matter, and that they are in a safe place. You're not here to judge them. You're not here to criticize them, but to just say, here is a danger. I believe you get an above-board response from your teens when you have that kind of environment. And I think with a teens today is you just say, I'm not trying to tell you what to do. I'm not trying to tell you how to solve the drug problem. I'm just letting you know there's a danger out here. It used to be a slippery slope when people got involved in some kind of controlled substance. And they go down that path, maybe down the road later, they might get into a habitual situation or even addicted. Today, it's a minefield, one time. Some of these kids, the stories are a person's taken a Xanax just to cover the anxiety they're dealing with. They didn't want to deal with the embarrassment of talking to their parents or the hassle of going to a doctor or the inconvenience of going to a pharmacy, legitimate pharmacy. It's much more convenient and easy to go on Snapchat and Instagram. You have discretion, you have privacy. In one story of a family we know, she took a half a Xanax because she knew, well, this is off online, but I'll just take it to be safe. And she died within minutes. And they found enough fentanyl to kill 3 grown adult men in her system. So this problem is much more severe than what I believe a lot of our public in general, including younger generation, really understand. Do you want to add to that?
I'll just be really quick. Chris and I, we just really felt like if Zach ever got off track, we would have red flags and you'd see the signs, the grades drop, the friends change, that type of thing. But this happened for him so quickly. It just kind of came just so fast. So I would just say, even if you have that straight A student and that kid that you think, oh, they would never, do drugs. A lot of times, these kids don't think of it as like, quote, doing drugs. They think they're taking a Xanax or an Adderall or something like that they recognize. So I would just say, this is a conversation that really has to happen in every house, just to say, if you are struggling with something, if you're curious about something, like you just need to take this off the playlist. Like you need to really understand what this is about, because the problem as well with fentanyl is if it doesn't take you out quickly like it did with Zach, it is such an insidious addiction. that it, there are a lot of kids that end up really struggling with it and don't survive it, and it's equally tragic. And so I would just say, like Chris said, just really have those conversations when we go to talk to the kids. We try not to, like Chris said, to be dictatorial in any way, but just to tell them, like, we care about you so much. Like, we can't save our son, but we really care about your kids. And all the kids that are here, we really care about you guys, and we just want you to know what's out there. And so it's about having honest conversations. It's about destigmatizing these conversations, whether it's a first time or early experimenter or a child that is struggling. Like, we need to destigmatize these conversations and have open dialogue.
Thank you. So the next question, I'm not sure who would be the best panelist to answer this, but is fentanyl added to CBD products?
I have no personal knowledge. I have no personal knowledge of it right now, but it's now being found in marijuana, so I'm sure it's gonna end up in CBD at some point. They're doing it because it makes their product that much more addictive, so to speak. Potent. The reason why, it's being mixed with every illicit drug. So CBD is next, I'm sure. Yes. Good.
I actually don't know what it stands for. I know how it's spelled, but that's it's a byproduct of cannabis. It's THC is the part that makes you get high. CBD is the more medicinal part to it. Sorry, I'm just a soccer dad.
As far as the CBD goes, the THC content has to be less than 0.02, I believe. So basically, there's zero effects from the THC to make it high.
San Diego County DEA's office first sent out a bulletin in, I want to say November of 2019 or 2018, you guys may know this answer, of the first discovery of fentanyl in a vape device. And it's just here. And the other thing is that I can't remember where this was. I can get the information, but it was this last August where fentanyl was found in gummy bears that used to be Jolly Ranchers. They melted the Jolly Ranchers, mixed fentanyl in it, and they reformed it in a gummy bear to make people think, oh, that's an innocent candy. So fentanyl is just starting to really get into everything that's very pervasive.
So this is a question for Jeremiah. Is the counseling from Wellness Together only during school hours?
Good question. I can answer that. Not to take away from the overall purpose of kind of what we're here tonight, but for Wellness Together services specifically, it's during school hours in some instances, particularly for meeting with family. It could be like an hour before or an hour afterwards, if that is helpful for the particular student.
So aside from pills, how does fentanyl get in kids' hands unintentionally?
I'm not a pipe guy here. So basically fentanyl, like I said, it's the purest form of the powder. So it can be put into anything. And like I said, you can go on the internet, the dark web, and order it from China. It's literally like, I want to say, one of the trading prices is like $1,000 a kilo. That's the reason why the cartels are involved in it. It's so cheap for them to manufacture. And then you saw the prices that you're paying on the street. So look at the profit there. So unfortunately, we're finding just powder fentanyl. And I don't think anybody touched on it. There's fentanyl is made in a lab, so it's a chemical component to it. Say chemistry understands there's all these little molecules that come off of it. You start adding molecules to it, and you start creating different analogs of fentanyl. Carfentanil is 100 times more potent than fentanyl. So you're cutting your dosages down. You don't know what you're getting. It all looks the same. It's all white. It's all getting mixed into everything now. I'm hoping that answers your question.
I can add a brief bit to it. controller, I probably don't need a microphone, but.
Since I've got one here, I'll use it. The unintentional aspects we've seen as well, growing not so much in this county, but nationwide is, parents that have it and are using it themselves, and it ends up in the hands of the children, either intentionally or unintentionally. I mean, it's such volatile stuff that it can not even be ingested on the part of a child intentionally, but we've seen the collateral effects of adults having it that unintentionally end up in the hands of children, and then we have, more deaths in that respect, and we've seen that sort of reflected in our child neglect and child endangerment charges from the legal side.
Thank you. So this question is about social media. Are there dealers contacting our kids, or are kids seeking fentanyl or drugs out through social media? And the second part is specifically tell us more about the risks of using Snapchat regarding drugs and benchmarks.
Just to speak to it a little bit, and then obviously defer to those that are in the field and learning about this. I don't know if it's been addressed yet, but just to share one of the reasons why would someone want to place this into a product and sell it on the street? One of the main reasons why I believe is because dealers would make that particular product more desirable, because it's more potent, because it has a whatever kind of high to it, and so they are hoping for some kind of that person to come back, and we find out they aren't coming back because of the mass this is not regulated and how much is put in there. So as far as unintentional, I haven't heard as far as any stats on youth trends these days that youth are saying, hey, where can I get some fentanyl? That would be akin to, hey, where can I get some poison? Because it's that deadly. It is likely, hey, is there any Adderall or other benzodiazepines, Percocet, other things that they think that they are getting that's happening on there. I don't know that the dealers are necessarily seeking out. I don't think they're hurting for business, unfortunately. But it is students wanting to maybe have a good time at a party or looking to have something maybe, as you mentioned, especially students with their brains aren't fully developed and they're looking to, marijuana's not that bad. And they're looking that becomes kind of a gateway into more illicit substances, and you find yourself in a place where I didn't want to be here, kind of thing. So I would speak to those big pictures, but I haven't seen any stats in regards to dealers kind of seeking out youth, but defer to being less than
Yeah, I'll just say generally that the overwhelming majority of the cases we've seen have been deception cases. These have been poisonings. These aren't, when you use the term overdose, you think of someone struggling with an issue and it overcomes them. This is not that. This is a poison. These are, most of the time, children or young adults who are ingesting something that they think is something else. That's poison. And that's the overwhelming majority. There are those who are seeking fentanyl because it is incredibly powerful and it's incredibly addictive. That's why social media is used as the marketing. It is the ultimate marketing tool, right? I mean, any adult in the room who has a child that has access to a cell phone knows that that child knows more about that device than you do. Right? When my phone breaks, I give it to my 11-year-old to fix it. And he knows more about some of the trends on social media. My kids watch YouTube instead of regular television shows now, right? And to try and stay on top of that is incredibly difficult for parents, and the dealers know that as well. That is another component to the difficulty with this issue is you have to be aware of the social media that your children are experiencing, and that is hard. That is tough stuff. I mean, it changes daily. I mean, there are deceptive apps that children can bypass their parents, the ones that look like calculators and things like that. Those are incredibly difficult to stay on top of. It's difficult for us to stay on top of to try and educate folks to know what to do. That's why Snapchat and those types of apps are used, because it's the ultimate marketing with very little oversight. There's no government regulation of the app itself, and parental oversight is just so challenging. That's why the only real way to get ahead of it is to talk about it. And Chris and Laura, what they say is very poignant. The destigmatization has to come away from that, right? We have to be able to talk about these things without shaming or guilting the victims that were deceived into dying. And once you start to do that, then the conversations, those awkward family conversations that you have to have, become less awkward, and it becomes more of a free flow dialogue. And as Chris said, without the judgment there, the kids will start opening up and talking. And that's, I mean, we will keep enforcing, and these guys are very good at what they do. And in fact, this area is incredibly lucky to have the Trident team as active as they are. But you heard what the addict on TV said. For every dealer that is taken out, there's 5 more to take its place, and that's absolutely true. And these guys, they will get everyone they can, but until we can open up this message and keep that dialogue, and kids know, wait a minute, this is off limits. Buying a pill, it's not worth the risk. And once they get to that point, then maybe we reduce the number of these traumatic events that occur. Sorry, way too long there, but I hope that answered.
And I was just going to add to that, I think often, as Dia Geyer was saying, the kids aren't going to know what they think they're getting something different. Often we've heard that, kids, it can be word of mouth. Like someone can say, hey, I'm thinking about when I try Percocet. Oh, there's this guy with this handle or whatever, you can hit him up, he's got Percocet. But I think the dealers can also put out stories, things like that can hit like a radius of people that are on Snapchat, and a story can pop up on their phone unsolicited. So it can go both ways, is my understanding with that app.
Okay, so this question is interesting. What could parents look out for on bank transactions, credit card statements, Venmo? Are there any specific signs that parents could look for on transaction receipts that could be a red flag that they need to, move to next steps?
Yeah, I'd like to add to that question about what signs that they're getting even involved in fentanyl. But as far as the money part, some signs, if you are involved in your child's budget, if you have access to their bank account, like a joint youth account type of thing, you might be able to see it that way. But sometimes it's really difficult because they could say, hey, I just took out money out of ATM to give to my soccer buddy, and the soccer buddy can corroborate that. It's easy to get lost, if that makes sense. But in terms of Venmo, I haven't heard anything about Venmoing an actual drug dealer. From what I understand it's cash, but I don't know. If you guys have anything to add to that?
I was just going to say, I have talked to parents where a Cash App or Venmo, that type of service has been used in these transactions. For a lot of kids, it is cash because they might have, as you were saying, here's $30, they may have some cash, but yeah, sometimes you'll see that.
Yeah, I was just going to say the aside from the sort of financial aspect of it, and again, I'm sort of preaching the impossible here, but things that are out of the norm, and we've encountered this with sort of cyberbullying and sexting as well. It's just getting out of the ordinary on social media. Your friends, your kids have sort of their network, but if something seems odd, something seems different, there's somebody new, there are text messages or Snapchats that just seem a little different. Those have been, in some cases, indicators that they're communicating with people outside their normal circle, and that maybe something's up, and maybe it's worth a conversation, maybe it's nothing. I mean, you used to only have to worry about the people in your school, now you have to worry about people all over the world, and so many of these cases where the fentanyl is purchased, it's people coming from out of town. We've got people from the Bay Area that are driving into our community to sell these things and then going back. So anything that might alert you to something out of the ordinary that's going on in their social network, again, I'm going to acknowledge that's very incredibly difficult to do, and you don't want your kids to feel as if they're being spied upon all the time, but there's that healthy balance of knowing enough but not too much, and where you strike that balance in your family is the struggle that we all face, all of us that have kids. But just, when people often look back and say, well, here was a weird sort of anomaly, or here was some weird things going on. let that be an avenue of exploration, and maybe that's enough to kind of dissuade somebody to say, okay, no, I almost got caught, or now that caused a conversation about the one pill can kill, and then we move on, and maybe that solves the issue. But just those anomalies are oftentimes clues that, unfortunately, people who look back have been able to build upon and try and use that as information going forward.
So this question is, are you guys seeing dealers wanting to poison or kill their customer? Or are you seeing them trying to get them hooked to continue to come back?
I definitely want to defer to these guys on that as well, but what I would say from what we've learned is just the margin, there's no margin of error with fentanyl. And these are not chemists. They are just looking to make a buck. And if a few customers die, that's the cost of doing business. So they're, making these things in these clandestine labs, whether they're, down south, they're, as we've heard, they're pressing them right here in our country. And there's no quality control with these pills. So anyway, that's the thing. And you may try one pill, it's got very little fentanyl in it, and think, oh, these aren't that bad. And then the next pill could kill 5 people. It's just completely inconsistent.
Yeah, Laura's absolutely right. I mean, they're trying to addict and hook, but there's apathy as well. So there's an acceptable margin of error in their death rate, and they will continue to do what they do because they know there will be more demand after that until we can stop the demand. So that is their primary goal. In those circumstances where we can prove that dealers knew what they were doing was going to harm someone, that's when we attach murder charges. When you know that you are completely disregarding, and unfortunately the law is, makes it a relatively high legal burden for us to demonstrate that they knew the risk, they knew what they were doing, they disregarded that risk, continued it anyway. In those cases, and we've seen them in this state, where dealers have had customers who have died, and then they continue to sell. And we've seen and will see murder charges attached to those. And when you hold someone responsible, and you can sort of imagine, I won't get too into the weeds legally, but you can see the complication of attaching criminal liability to someone based on the intentional or volitional act of someone else, right? Someone intentionally is doing something and they die. Well, legally it's difficult to attach liability. It's not impossible. We're doing it all the time. We're doing it in this county and we'll continue to do it. The more that person knows about how dangerous their behavior is to their customers, the higher that liability or risk of liability is, to the point that we can get to murder. And most of the counties, or a lot of the counties in California now, are sort of proactively advising defendants on that. We're doing it in Placer, they're doing it in Sacramento, they're doing it up and down the state, that when people are convicted of selling narcotics to other people, whether it's fentanyl or not, we give an advisement, much like we give an advisement when someone gets a DUI. When someone gets a DUI, they're advised that if you do this again and you kill somebody, it could be murder, because now you know. And we're doing that with our drug offenses. We're saying, you're selling meth right now, but there is so much indistinction between when fentanyl gets into meth or any other drug that we advise you that you are now hereby on notice. You're getting convicted, you're going to jail for a while, or going to prison for selling drugs, but now you're on notice that if you engage in this behavior again and someone dies as a result of it, now you know, and it's murder after that. And we've seen that throughout a couple of counties where those dealers, they're trying to hook people, but instead they're killing people, but they don't care, and they keep doing it. And that's when legally we can raise the stakes on. So circling back, that's their goal, is to hook, but there's that apathy that just shows they don't care if it costs some of their customers at all.
So, I'm sorry.
They are 100% right. We actually have undercover assets that are talking to these high-level narcotics traffickers. They specifically tell us, when we're talking to them, negotiating these deals for large quantities of pills, that these are better. These got a lot more in them. They're potent. So they're intentionally doing that because they know they're addicting people, and they're sending it to the U.S. and they're telling the guy trying to buy the loads coming from Mexico that it's more potent, and these are better than the last one we gave you. So, I mean, it's 100%. That's all they're trying to do, and they don't care whether or not somebody dies, because it's all about the dollars for them.
Officer Wesley, this question probably is best for you. So, are you seeing pills being ordered online and mailed to people, or how is the way of delivering the drugs to the customers? So to speak?
From a street level aspect, most of it's probably gonna be hand in hand. Like I said, I don't typically deal with that. I have accepted bills multiple times coming through pretty much all of the shipping centers, FedEx, UPS, DHL. Unfortunately, California is the gateway because, of course, Mexico is right below us. The only other way for the majority of the narcotics come through is on the East Coast. So pretty much all of our drugs go to the East Coast via mail, car. However, if it's smuggled through Florida or wherever, very rarely do you see it coming back. But I have seen bills coming from the East Coast, and those were 100% true OxyContin pills that somebody had a prescription for. They do what they call SMRF. They go to doctor, which is how the whole opioid epidemic started. They go to 6 different doctors, get a prescription for OxyContin pills, and they sell them. You saw the prices that they're paying for it. It's ridiculous. I mean, you have insurance and it's going to cover your prescription. And the ones that I actually seized, according to her, when I talked to her on the phone, those were her, she provided me with the prescriptions, but those were her cut of her prescription so she could stay healthy, is what they like to call it when they're addicts. And the rest of the people were selling it on the East Coast for her. Whether she got money for it or not, I don't know.
I'd like to add a couple of examples that we've heard of. As Laura had already mentioned earlier, a lot of this at the high school level begins with word of mouth. There's plugs throughout the school, and there's activity of transactions or connecting a consumer to whatever product they're looking for throughout high school. It's everywhere. So one example is a kid gets information from what they call a plug of a person on Snapchat, for example. Here's their user ID, and they reach out to that person and say, hey, my friend referred me, and what do you got? And right now what's happening in social media platforms or an online grocery store. And there's different ways they can connect, but what I've heard some stories is examples such as they reach out to the drug dealer. The drug dealer tends to want to verify this is a legitimate buyer versus an undercover agent or narc. And one of the things they do with Snapchat is they use their Snap score. Every time a person sends messages to their friends, especially a young high school kid, their Snap score is pretty high. They have a long history, as opposed to an undercover agent starting a whole new profile. Their Snap score is 0 or very low. So drug dealers use that. They use video verification. They may ask a high school student to, hey, show me that you're smoking marijuana or eating an edible or whatever. And once they feel like, hey, I think this is a legitimate buyer, Snapchat and several others show you can share your location. So you can just say in the message on Snapchat, hey, I'm going to be at the mall. I'm going to be at the park. I'm going to be, at the school parking lot or whatnot. I'm interested in this product. Give you a pill, vape device, a puff bar, an edible, marijuana, whatever, alcohol, cigarettes. And the drug dealer will say, okay, sounds great. And you will walk up to that buyer because they're sharing their location. And the dealer walks up and says, hey, you have your $30. And he knows what that means. And then the student is like, oh, yeah, here you go. And the exchange happens in less than 20, 30 seconds. A total stranger, the student has never met before in person and has this exchange really fast and insufficient. And it's discreet. And as you know, Snapchat, for example, once those messages are read, they vanish. Instagram has something like that called vanishment. Facebook has their version of that. And that's how drug dealers are taking advantage of technology to sell this illicit content with free of impunity and just getting away with it. So I don't know if that helps.
So this question how can we empower kids to share anonymously when they come across any of these signs on social media?
Well, Snapchat used to, I don't know if they've activated it, reactivated it, but they had trying out a feature to anonymously report a drug dealer to Snapchat. Snapchat's really trying to become more aggressive on countering these activities. And now, if it's been reported, Snapchat by default will just delete their profile or suspend it and then investigate later. But I don't know if they're still using that feature.
It's a good question.
It's a difficult question, really, because it's like, is the platforms, are they there to encourage reporting? And I'm impressed that Snapchat has been testing something. What is Facebook and Instagram? What is Twitter?
My understanding too is that a lot of the Instagram stuff, you screenshot it, it sends notification to them. Like I said, I'm not the social media guy by any means, but there's absolutely no reason that your son, any student, can't take it to the parent and show them who in turn take it to a law enforcement officer. And we may or may not be able to identify who that person is, but at least it's a step towards trying to get rid of these people that are doing this online. And I'll be honest with you, I mean, you hit something hard enough, you hit Instagram and start arresting dealers off of that, they're gonna quit using Instagram to do that. They'll find another means of doing it. We've, on the higher level of it, I mean, we used to intercept phone calls about drug dealers. They got smart because they knew they were getting caught. Now they're using apps that are untraceable. We can't listen to the recordings or the phone calls. The messages disappear. So, I mean, anything the kids can bring, even to the school resource officers, and you don't want to talk to your parents. I mean, obviously that's not their line of work, but they're going to get it to the person that needs to be dealing with the street level narcotics officers. And Rockland has an agent assigned to a task force that's countywide that deals with the local street level dealers.
So as you're getting the mic, I do have another question. I think this is perfect for you. Do you think social media platforms will ever be criminally liable for facilitating drug deals?
Questions are getting more and more complicated as we sit here.
Smart.
They vary. And I just made a note of that platform because that's, we're looking for creative ideas to provide outlets, and the officers and I are thinking, what can we do to build a case against someone? But really the priority is how do we alert parents and teachers and counselors that someone might be in danger of either experimenting or doing this, and that's where this platform anonymously might actually save some lives, and that's something that intrigued me. So that's worth some thought. How do we provide that easy access for kids to say, hey, someone's reaching out to a drug dealer in my class, but I don't want to be a part of this in a criminal case, but somebody needs to contact that kid. And that's a good question, and something that seems like should be something easily that we can come up with, and empower our counselors and our teachers and our parents to be able to let our kids do that and educate them and say, hey, if you have any doubts, we'd rather have information that we can't use legally against someone if we know that information is going to save lives. So that's the important thing. So I just made that note because that's something that I think deserves a little more thought on how we can implement something like that. So thank you to the question asked for that. The second question was criminally liable for social media platforms. It's incredibly difficult. We've seen it by analogy. We've seen it with companies like Backpage that were hosting like specific sites for human trafficking. But as you've seen in other areas where manufacturers and hosts of platforms are trying to be held liable, it's incredibly difficult. The legal process is very drawn out and very expensive, so it's difficult to pursue it. But it's an interesting issue. I think we've seen it with the dark web, certainly, because the dark web and things like Silk Road, if you're familiar with that, which is sort of the original high-profile dark web, those are clearly designed for only one purpose, and that's for the illegal transaction of goods. When you add the First Amendment implications with Facebook and their defense saying, hey, we just host this for things. Criminally liable will be difficult. Civilly liable will be probably easier. The problem is you've got a multi-billion-dollar corporation, and how do you really hit them hard in the pocketbook? You either stomp them through an injunction or a criminal sanction that is incredibly difficult. But I wouldn't be surprised if, at the rate that this epidemic is occurring in our communities, that we don't see at least an attempt to do that, and maybe the attempt to do that draws enough attention that it pulls on the heartstrings of the people who are making a lot of money by hosting these platforms, and they regulate it a little better. I think that's a more realistic hope is, can we get these folks to obviously shut down platforms and sites that are commonly being used solely for these purposes. And if we can get to that, that may be a realistic goal rather than ultimately holding these criminally liable. But it's an interesting idea, and maybe we'll see it. Maybe we'll be forced to deal with it, right here. But it'll be a very complicated process and a long road, but one that ultimately may be worth it, and maybe the results happen just because of that process.
Sure. Well, believe me, we have spoken with hundreds and hundreds of parents just like us. Let's sue Snapchat, let's sue, and this and that. And right now, the law just doesn't support it. These hosting platforms, are protected from what their users, do on their platform. We are trying to work through Congress at the federal level to get more safeguards in place and more liability, on these hosting platforms to better monitor their sites. But it's a long process. So right now, most lawyers, would not take this on because there's not, because of these protections, for these platforms. So I know Chris has more.
This is a kind of a recent update. One of the other nonprofits that we work with is called the Victims of Illicit Drugs, or VOID, and they are working hand in hand with another nonprofit called the Alliance to Counter Crime Online. And there's been a lot of energy and a lot of effort to lobby with Congress and bring to Capitol Hill the need to affect change. The laws that protect social media platforms, the biggest one right now is called Section 230C. It was codified into law in 1996, way before Instagram, Snapchat, and all of that. And they basically have complete immunity. And if a crime occurs on their platform, there's no legal responsibility on their part. If someone were to sell drugs inside Safeway, obviously that's a different thing. If it's illegal in the real world, it should be legal in the cyber world. So there's a lot of effort to change legislation and to bring more safeguards online as well. And you may have noticed, if you haven't, last week there was a the Congressional Energy and Commerce Committee have been talking about this, and they're trying to bring to the table, in fact, new change to try to bring these safeguards in. Now, to what extent, how Snapchat or Instagram or TikTok are going to be liable, that's yet to be determined, but kind of like the federal government invoking a law to mandate seatbelts in car manufacturers. That's a safeguard for now airbags. And so I do believe there will be a future where there will be better safeguards on social media platforms and our laws get updated. So.
Just right in line with what you all were saying on a hopeful note on some of those congressional hearings last week, the top executive of Instagram was there. Quite a few questions, especially in light of the studies showing, particularly for females on Instagram, that it contributes to a lower self-image and lower body image for them. It can be toxic for them. And as a result, when you would say, I think just last month, they've been testing out this new feature on Instagram called Take a Break that encourages users to set a reminder like 10, 20, or 30 minutes later. In the same way like Netflix says, are you still watching after a certain period of time? And you're like, don't tell me what to do, Netflix. But for our students that can get kind of lost, even for us, right? Just to say, is this going to be healthy for you kind of thing. So with that, that came after years of a groundswell of conversations and events like this for organizations like Song Charlie and the work that you all are doing, that it can reach that level to say, hey, this is contributing to the literal deaths of hundreds of thousands of people. What can we do? What does it look like even at the level of these multi-billion-dollar companies, as you said, District Attorney Geyer, to have safeguards there as well, not only at the local level, but even if there's a reporting mechanism within some of these social media things to say, hey, this is beyond just inappropriate content, but perhaps there's a legal activity happening here. We quickly notify someone anonymously.
Thank you. We have a lot of other questions that unfortunately we are running out of time. However, after this panel wraps up, we do have tables, and our guests will be at their tables, and Officer Westgate will be with the other officers near the back corner as well to take questions that we aren't able to get to now. But I have 4 questions, all relating to the same topic. So I'm going to ask this last question. Would you guys be willing to visit the middle schools and high schools to share the story as well as make students aware of what's going on?
We actually really welcome that opportunity. We went to Whitney High School, was that 3 weeks ago or so, maybe a month ago, and spoke with the leadership students there. That was really impactful. There were about 100 students there. And we also were really, really pleased with some very great ideas that teachers and students are coming up with. At Whitney High School, a teacher for the journalism class or some, I believe a journalism class, she had us come in for a class period and her students treated it like a press conference. So she had kind of given them an overview of Zach's story and all of that, and then the kids were encouraged to write down questions and treat it like a press conference. We called on the different students, they asked really great questions, and then used that to then put an article in the paper. Was it Monday? We were at Rockland High School with the broadcasting department, and I believe those are our photographers and videographers and everything, right? Is that Ryan back there nodding? Let's hear it for the Rockland broadcasting class. They too were awesome. We spent an hour with them, and off camera, they asked us questions about all of this. They were very attentive, very respectful, very compassionate, and they'll be editing that together for a piece that will air for the students at Rockland High. So we're all about trying to find creative ways to really engage the students in this. We were just on a Zoom right before this with Center Unified School District in Sacramento. These shirts were actually made by Vista Del Lago High School in Folsom, where we came and did a presentation there. So we're loving getting in front of students and talking with them. They're so compassionate and empathetic, and we really feel like it's leaving a good impression for them. Oh, and we were at Phoenix High School in Lincoln as well. Tragically, Phoenix lost a graduate that Mom and I have become very good friends. So she and I did a joint presentation at Phoenix High School, and we've got slides, PowerPoints, other videos in addition to the video with Zach. And this really is our mission now. Our older 2 kids are off and doing their thing, and we just and they're actually also a part of our advocacy. When they're in town, they're right by our sides, advocating with us. They miss their baby brother a lot. So if any of you have any suggestions, for other places, scout troops. Zach was on his way to getting an Eagle Scout, so we've been talking to the Eagle Scout troops about getting in as well.
She covered it.
So I do want to touch a little bit about that. We did record tonight's information night. It will be shared to all families once the production is complete. All the information with the video of Zach's story as well, we'll include it in the family's newsletter within the next few weeks or no later than by the February email, if not before that. So like I said earlier, our guests will be at the tables behind us. So please join me in thanking them for spending some time with us tonight, as well as sharing their personal stories.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Sure. I just want to get one more thing out. Narcan and fentanyl test strips are becoming more of a discussion topic. We can talk more about that afterwards. And we're also seeing more, as people are getting more involved in these drugs, and they're starting to get physically affected by it. There's been more number of cases where their friends don't know what to do. And there is a Good Samaritan law. I highly recommend teaching that to your kids, that if you're smoking marijuana under the age of 21, you know you shouldn't be, but your friend is dying or they're overdosing, calling 911 will not get you in trouble. And so those are some other important topics that are in addition to that. So lots to talk about, great information, and I just want to one more time say thank you for making the effort to come out here. It really warms my heart to know that you guys care and you guys really want to make a difference. So I do, we all appreciate that.
And last thing I would like to add is, parents, don't hesitate to reach out to your school principal, the school counselor, a teacher, anyone that you see here on the stage. We're all in this together to help our students and our families during any time of need. So please join me in thanking all of our participants today. And thank you and have a good night.